Hello everyone, we're going to talk about language acquisition and language learning. We are group A, and in this case we're going to talk about language acquisition or the second language acquisition called ESL. It refers to the study of how language are learned by learners. Language acquisition can be defined as the absorption of language since childhood. It's important to consider that it is not an entire process and it must take a long time to be acquired due to it starts in childhood and it is the assimilation of linguistic knowledge that we have or unaware grammatical rules. In this case, is the study of why most of second language learners don't achieve the same degree of a knowledge of a native language.
Okay. Language acquisition is a process which can take a place to any period of one's life. In this sense of first language acquisition, however, it refers to the acquisition and conscious learning of one's native language or the language in the case of bilinguals. During the 6 or 7 years of one's life, probably from birth to the time one starts school. In case we have the characteristics of first language acquisition. In this instinct, it's very rapid, it's very complete, it does not require instruction. On the other ability, acquire the language with the native speaker competence. This measures severely around puberty.
According with about language acquisition as a student must be engaged with the language. It is often a way that comprehensible input in the bias for language acquisition is the study of acquisition of a primary language and is the subconscious development of language that takes place as a result of interactions and input. We have language pedagogy, cross-cultural communication and language use, and language policy and language planning.
Contrasting with my classmates says, language acquisition and language learning differs from that language learning, it needs to implicate the teaching methods, and also language acquisition, it is important to reach in the environment in which the students are in it. Language acquisition is separate from the study of language pedagogy, although this does not imply that there are no implications that can be drawn from second language acquisition to the related discipline from language teaching.
Okay, I totally agree with my partner Ronald because language acquisition is the subconscious development of language that take place as a result of interaction and input and intentional process. Acquisition requires students to focus on content, and the learning is more of a subconscious process and almost effortless.
There's a key point that Stephanie mentioned that is language pedagogy. When we find an example of language teaching methodologies, it refers that language learning is only memorization, and there's no acquisition of language in the process of teaching learning process in the teaching learning process. So it's based on expectation of be memorize and translate the learning that people have. It made us to give an idea about language learning that in some cases it refers to fill in the blanks on grammatical points that we have only in the schools or by themselves. But in some cases it refers that is a focused learning that needs an effort to focus on learning and struct or form and structure of language that people need.
I am agree with my partner. The way you present the language, the target language or the structure, it's important. Just listening or explain the grammar rules. Our definition is probably that the most effectively way teach a language.
By other hand, in the case of language acquisition, there are many other disciplines in which the people can develop their kind of language. As for example, there are differences between the people who learn from arts and some other issues in other people who learns from the schools and something like that, because many of those disciplines quite clearly find themselves as part of the humanities or part of the science. Second, language acquisition, because of this complexity and its reliance on an import from other disciplines in which manage this kind of language.
I totally agree with Bernal because language learning is the result of direct instructions in the presence of structural lexicon and the language, often an intentional process. Explicit language teaching function as crucially for beneficial second.
Thank you, Steffi. But could you repeat, please, the last part of your statement, because it was so interesting and I want to give an opinion about that.
Okay, sure. Specific instruction and applicable study have been proven to be beneficial to second language development. The teacher role in SLA is an paramount importance of their students. Thanks.
Well, as Stephanie said, that there's a beneficial part between the language acquisition and language learning implementation on class. As we know, there are 2 points of view from children's view, the learning or the acquisition. The learning most of the time refers to a foreign language that children learn on the school system, while acquisition refers to the mother tongue that they learn on their own environment.
Okay, in my point of view, the language learning is the result of direct instruction in the rules, structures, or lexis of the language, often an intentional process. On the other hand, it's more of a focused effort that requires an awareness and knowledge of the forms and structures of the language.
Okay, according with my classmate said, giving as a second language acquisition deals with use. It is definitely part of the social science. The interactions are involved between interpersonal processes. In this case, the humanities are immersing all of us. To develop the second language acquisition, in these cases are important to remark that the environment manage useful and the most important part in the case of the language acquisition method.
As we mentioned, both can be helpful. In this case, we have memory types that can be termed related with acquisition of learning in any case if we see from different points of view. As implicit language is the knowledge that can be required unconsciously. For example, in this moment, we are implicit searching the words or the information that we searched before, while the explicit knowledge is the conscious development of the information. In this case, we select the key part that we consider to share with our classmates. There are some types of study learning that refers to the way that people learn. for example, in a passive, active, intentional, or incidental. First of all, passive and incidental can be related with acquisition, but we have to take in account that acquisition is not entire a passive process because we learn actually to since childhood with the help with our parents or with any other sources in the environment. Also, active and intentional is not only for learning because we have some beneficial parts of it in acquisition, and also passive and active are part of second language acquisition.
I'm agree with my partner, but the language learning as today is not communicative. It is a result of direct instruction of the rules of language. And it certainly is not age appropriate activity for your youngers. Learning students have conscious the language of the new language, and they can talk about the knowledge.
As a summary, both acquisition and learning can promote second language development. Teachers need to consider how they can use these two complementary methods to help their students. Teaching your students how to notice how gaps in their knowledge and new structure with the input may be of benefit.
Okay, in my point of view, the both acquisition and learning can promote second language development because the way that the teacher present the target language or structure is very important, because if the teacher just listen or explaining grammar rules is probably not the most effective way to teach a language.
At the last part, we have a brief summary of the information given by our classmates. Can you show the chart, please? Okay. There is a brief information about learning and acquisition and some of the characteristics that each people or each member of the group is told. So it's relevant to note that both of them can help to second language development, and it need to be an equilibrium between them and classes, because we can help learners to learn a language with some characteristic of each one of them. First, we have the learning on schools mixed with some characteristic of acquisition that must help learners or teachers to achieve a goal in order to develop this language. Well, I think that that was all. Any member of the group has give a point of view about this topic, and there's also a table that summarizes the information that we found. Thank you.